St. Joe's basketball fans, what an incredible treat today. We have our second Zoomcast. So our first one had John Bryant and Dwayne Jones. Feedback was great, and I'm hoping we have as much fun with this one as well. We have John Smith and Bryan Warrick on. This is about 70 minutes, so I hope everyone's able to sit back and enjoy this. They're going to walk us through their careers. I mean, both these guys are St. Joe's Basketball Hall of Fame members. Both guys were drafted into the NBA. Bryan is a Big Five Hall of Fame member. John Smith is one of the all-time leading field goal percentage shooters in the history of St. Joe's. Bryan is 9th all-time in steals, which is amazing, and I believe the 32nd all-time leading scorer. They're going to talk about their coach, Jim Lynam. They're going to talk about that team, that 1981 team that beat DePaul in the NCAA Tournament, really kicked off what is now known as March Madness. They're going to talk about what their expectations were going into the season. This is just a real treat, and I'm hoping that it'll bring joy to everyone. So take your time, find some time, get ready to sit down and enjoy their messages, their stories, their journeys, their love for each other, their love for their teammates, their love for Hawk Hill. Experienced a few technical difficulties as we went on, but we deliver it because the Hawk will never die. That is the spirit. So I am so excited to do this with these guys, and I hope that you guys find the same level of excitement and joy. Stay safe, everyone. Take care. John and Bryan, thank you for being here today. This is going to be a real treat, not just for me, but also for our fan base who's starving for some sort of basketball right now. We can't bring them any more important things to do than to sit and listen to you guys and talk about your careers and talk about that team that had that iconic win. So thank you for doing this. First and foremost, just want to start out and just seeing how everyone's health has been doing during this pandemic and just seeing how life is treating everyone right now in their own homes.
Good to go here in Ocean City. Thank God. So where everybody's healthy, happy, and hope everybody in your family in Hawk Hill and the family of Hawk Hill is sharing the same health and happiness and peace.
Thank you.
And we're pretty good here. Unfortunately, my mother had the coronavirus and passed, but thank God the rest of us are very healthy and staying safe.
That's great. Well, Bryan, we share in your passing, and I know you and I have spoken. And thank you for your faith and your endurance and your resilience. You embrace the Hawk will never die spirit. And thank you for taking the time and everything you've been through to do this with us. This is a real treat for me. My first memory as a St. Joe's basketball fan is watching the DePaul game. So, you know, my father may or may not have had a Miller Lite in his hand, John, when you made that layup. And I remember him getting on the phone and calling his friends. And, you know, I also grew up in South Jersey. So like Bryan Warrick is that's a legend. You know, Bryan Warrick is a legend in and around St. Joe's. Forget that for a second. You know, Bryan's legacy in South Jersey as a player, and then the fact that you came back, Bryan, for a long time and were able to give back to the community as a coach and turned out some really good players and some fine young men. So this is quite an honor. I'm happy to be here. I'm actually in Newtown Square. I'm not in front of the Ramsey Center. But, John, if I could be anywhere right now, it would probably be in Ocean City. So I'm a little envious of your space. You know, you get to get on that beach every day. How's the weather been down there?
It's a little cloudy right now and overcast. Looks like some rain coming through, Billy, but it's beautiful.
It's always beautiful.
You know, it's Jersey Shore. How can you beat it?
It's always beautiful.
Yeah, it's very fortunate. Very, very fortunate. So,
well, thank you, guys. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm getting a little better. Everything in recruiting has been Zoom for like the past 80-plus days, team meetings, staff meetings. I have a skill set that I never thought I would have, but I'm not perfect yet. So I'm going to share this screen, and we'll get going and talking a little bit. And thank you again for your guys' time.
Oh.
Uh-oh, you lost out. No, we're coming back, Bryan. I hope our family okay. All right. So Bryan, this is let me get back to you here real quick. You know, you and I have spoken a lot about like your recruitment, which is really interesting. So if you wouldn't mind just like talking about how you ended up on Hawk Hill? Like, how exactly did you get here, and walking our fan base through it, please?
Well, first I have to say the closer was Coach Lynam said I could play with John Smith. So that's how we closed the deal. Now, so I had played football, and a lot of people thought I was going to play football. And so basketball recruiting wasn't as heavy as we anticipated. And then my senior year, fortunately, we had the first All-Star game in New Jersey. And I happened to make that team, and I was the MVP. And in that game, Alan Shrebnick, which most St. Joe people do not know, but Coach Lynam and his family and Brad Greenberg all know him. He was an assistant at American University, and he saw me play. And I don't even think he spoke to me after the game. And I want to say 4 to 5 days later, Coach Lynam became the St. Joe's coach.
Wow.
And from that encounter where he saw me play, he obviously mentioned my name to Coach Lynam, and I went to another tournament in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Coach had seen me play. And then that started the recruiting process for me to go to St. Joe's, because when Coach Lynam took the job, I believe a lot of the recruits left from the previous coach, and then he had scholarships, he had opportunities, and fortunately for me, our paths crossed, and the rest is history.
Wow. Can you imagine I'm thinking about the transition that I went through last year. I would love to have signed a Hall of Famer, St. Joe's Hall of Famer, Big Five Hall of Famer, and an NBA player late. That would have been awesome. It very, very rarely happens. Bryan, so like you get there and, your memories, forget basketball for a second. We'll come back to that. But, the things that stick out to you the most about your time on Hawk Hill in terms of just the community, the people that you met, what part of that still stayed with you even as you graduated and left and moved on?
I think you hit it on the head. It's the people. So many people there are encouraging and trying to help you and trying to get to know you. And one of Coach Lynam's favorite saying is, the real world. This isn't the real world. You're going to be in the real world when you leave here. And they just prepared us, or at least me. I don't know if everyone else feels the same way. They helped prepare me for life outside of St. Joe's.
That's awesome. Hey, I'll tell you what, when I was looking at this picture, the high release on the jump shot, who was blocking that?
Well, hopefully nobody.
Look at the dude's socks in the lane. They're up to his kneecaps.
Hey, the other thing is all right, so this is the other thing, and this is what's so weird now, right? It's like the tiny things, the more I've looked at these pictures, it's like in this picture all the way to the left, he's in Converse, okay?
Right.
Yep.
One all the way to the right is Adidas. I don't know what's in the middle, but they actually look like a Nike model to me. Yeah. And Bryan, you've been involved in basketball. You've coached on a high school level. You still follow recruiting. You're all over this stuff still today. How much everything has changed with branding and partnerships.
Well, that's really ironic because we had a Nike deal, and Nike came in, and John, I don't know if John remembers, but we were wearing these Nike Blazers, and I ripped out of them and hurt my thigh hip a little bit. And I said, Coach, I'm never wearing Nike again.
Yeah, I recall it. Yeah, they were horrible shoes. They were
bad. The very first Nikes, they were bad. So from there's your buddy McFadden, Billy McFadden with Converse. He was all over it. He was all over me. And I go, okay, we're going to do this.
So you got to come clean. They got to let them know, though. Our alumni brothers, Billy McFadden was the Converse, right? Billy played for Ramsey.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, Billy DeAngelis.
He was Adidas rep.
Right,
yep.
So Billy played for McKinney. I don't think he played for Ramsey, but I know he played for McKinney. So depending on who was around the gym that day, it was depending on whose sneakers we wore, because we didn't want to wear Nike. And we only wore Nike. If you recall this, I only wore Nike when it was a TV game. So Lynam would say, "Look, it's a TV," and I wore Adidas. I loved the shell toe. So I was an Adidas guy, even though we were a Nike school. And but if it was a TV game, you had no choice. You had you were a Nike school.
No, I didn't wear them.
The first rendition was not a good quality rendition out the box.
Wow.
No.
Wow. And I'm sure there's going to be, I'm hoping that there will be we'll see a lot of different people that will tune in and listen to this once we post it. And for a lot of, like, I know for our players, that would blow their minds, right? To think that at that time, Nike's basketball shoe was not the one that people wanted. They weren't as relevant in the game. It's very, very interesting. John, your path to Hawk Hill was a unique one. And like, if you wouldn't mind just sharing, like, I know you transferred in and then you became this incredible leader by the time you left St. Joe's. So just walk us through your path and your arrival to Hawk Hill, if you would, please.
Yeah, so thanks again, Billy and Brian. It's great to see you, buddy. So I have a similar track with Alan Shrebnick and American, and like Brian did, but out of Bishop Neumann, my only offer was Fairleigh Dickinson University, and I didn't get that till the summer of '76. After I had none after my high school career, zero, and I had a really good summer league, which back then was the Richard Barbarian Summer League. So we all did Sunny Hill. And then after Sunny Hill, you also did the Richard Barbarian Sunny League in Delaware County. So I had a monster summer, led it in scoring. And if everybody remembers, I don't know if you remember it, Brian, but that league also had Banks and Brooks and
of course
Tillman. And I mean, they were all there, and they were sponsored by Mrs. Paul's pals, the Speedway family. So they owned the food business, right? So they were, long story short, they had uniforms. I played for a guy, a LaSalle Hall of Famer, incredible Hall of Famer, champion. I played for a guy named Frank Blatcher. It was Gola was one forward. Frank Blatcher was the other forward. Frank was my guy, and I had a monster summer. And there was a guy in the stands that I knew from South Philly, Paulie Stonis, and he said, I'm going to call my coach, Al LaBalbo, at Fairleigh Dickinson, see if he's got a scholarship. Well, Al LaBalbo never saw me play a minute in my life, never saw a film. Al LaBalbo gives me a scholarship to Fairleigh Dickinson. I'm from South Philly. What do I know about Teaneck, New Jersey? I'm going to Hackensack, right? Give me a break. So I go up, and 3 days later, I can't stay in the place. I think I'm in a different country. While my roommates literally, so we had a basketball dorm. While my roommates slept, I packed my bags. I had my parents pick me up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, if you don't beep the horn, and if I don't hear you, I'm going to find a bus station. My parents, rest their souls, they couldn't afford college. If I didn't get a scholarship, I'm going to the waterfront with all my buddies, and I'm going to unload the ships on the docks, right? That's my neighborhood at 2nd Street, all right? Long story short, and they all try to talk me out of it. You got to stay. It's free. It's free. It's free. Come on, give it a chance. You're only there 3 days. You're right, only 3 days. If I don't hear the horn, I'll find a bus. Understand? Pop. And my mother worked 4 to 12, so I said, look, she gets done the midnight shift. I know you can get out of South Philly by 12:30 a.m. You can be in Teaneck. There's no traffic by 3. I'll give you the 3 a.m. Horn beeps. I'm out the door. Fast forward, Penn State Ogontz in Abington, Pennsylvania. It's now called Penn State Abington. I had looked at that. My buddy Steve Melchiori went there. And I said, here's the deal. Call Wes Olson, the AD. I'll go there to a junior college. I'll figure it out. And I went to junior college and playing our 2 years. You play Philly Community, play Drexel's JV. So this is how I meet Jimmy Lynam. So Frank, we're playing Drexel's JV team at Drexel. We're the prelim to Drexel American University. Frank's in the crowd, Blatcher. Lynam, do they know each other? What are you doing here? Hey, that's my guy, Smith down there, number 10. He goes, really? So he watches a little bit. After the game, starts recruiting me. Sends who? Alan Shrebnick, the Penn State Ogontz. This is where I meet Alan Shrebnick, right? So then, same story Brian just told you. I want to go to American University. It's great. And then, a couple of days later, you read the Inquirer, Lynam quits American. My mother says to me, what are you going to do now? I says, I guess I'm going to unload ships, on the waterfront. And then the phone call comes and Lynam says, hey, I took the St. Joe job. I'd like to take you with me.
Amazing.
That's the roundabout version of how I got there.
That is nice.
Quite a roundabout.
Amazing. It's interesting that, Brian, in the times that you and I have spoke, we talk a lot about how basketball has changed in the South Jersey and Philadelphia areas. But, John, you referenced Sunny Hill. And, the Sunny Hill League today, or what it's been, like, in relation to what it was when you guys played, like, the best players. You can argue that Philadelphia is the best basketball city in the world. And like South Jersey, when Bryan was growing up, had like real studs. And, you know, being a part of that Philadelphia fabric, like that, as you guys grew up in high school and played in that league, and I'll start with you, Bryan, did it create a sense of belonging and also an appreciation for what an opportunity to play at St. Joe's was, just because of how big Philadelphia basketball was, and how did the Sunny Hill League influence that for you?
Well, it's ironic because I didn't play in the Sunny Hill League
Wow.
in high school. Yeah. But just playing in Philadelphia, just being in the Big Five, how you would play pickup games with all the players from the other schools, to me was essential in us growing as a team and as individuals, as players. But I would say there was so much talent. I'm not even sure if a South Jersey team was playing in the Sunny Hill League at that time. Eventually, South Jersey started to play in the Sunny Hill League.
That might be true, because I played in the Sunny Hill League as a player from South Jersey and coached in it. So you might be right. Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. So, no, I just think that no matter where I've gone in my basketball life, and the reference comes up about you had 5 Division I schools in one city, and most people can't understand Big Five basketball. And then I would always include Drexel. We had 6 Division I schools. And then I go, we had a national champion, Cheney. We had a national champion, Textile. I go, basketball's big in Philadelphia. Yeah, people just loved it. And I think that iron sharpens iron, like you say. There's no question about that.
No doubt. How about, I mean, John, for you, I mean, you know, you grow up playing in Philadelphia high school basketball, and now you're in the Sunny Hill League, and then you're in the Big Five. I mean, it had to feel, I don't want to say like a dream come true, because I don't know if it was your dream, but for you, like that rite of passage to just climb up that food chain must have been really special for you and your family.
Indeed. Yeah. See, I talked earlier about fit. Where do you fit?
Right.
I always thought I fit at D2. Now, Bryan's dating himself, and I'll go along with it. So he just said textile. So the fit for me was Herb McGee and textile. I loved M. the Gem Salmons. I loved Ray Tarnowski. I loved Pete Mimo. I watched that team. They were Division II studs, right? So I knew it. I followed it, you know. And I said, I think I could play there. I think I'm a fit. And, you know, I had, I forget the guy's name, but they came out to all the high school all-star. Herb never did, but his assistant did, John Parentozzi. John Parentozzi, 6'9" monster. And I could never get a sniff. So I couldn't get a sniff, right? You know, they didn't think I thought I was a fit, but they didn't think I was a fit. And that's how, you know, I plugged along and I got a break. You know, like Bryan, I have people in my corner, Frank Blatcher, all my guys at 4th and Shunk in South Philly, Steve Malchiori, Joe Carchidi, Joe Figger, all these guys that I grew up through EOM on 2nd Street that stayed with me, were my mentors, people I respect and look up to. You know, these are the folks that says, you know, don't give up, stick with it. You got something here. And despite the fact that, you know, I never thought I could play Big Five basketball as much. And by the way, just we might edit this part if it goes to the website, Billy. We might edit this, all right, just to give you a forewarning and full transparency. But I was a Villanova fan growing up, so I was a Howard Porter, Hank Simonowski, Tom Inglesby, Chris Ford, Eddie Hastings. They were my guys as a kid, right? So you can edit that out, but I never thought from an athletic perspective, personally, that I can't play with these cats. This is a different level. Now, finally getting there, you know, you got, thank God you had good coaches, and says, you know, Jim Boyle said, this is how you could drop step and you could do something inside. Wow. You know, Lange said, you're going to shoot the ball from 15 feet and in, and if you shoot a 16-footer, you're going to sit on the bench. I get it. So we're going to fit you into a slot where you can be effective.
Unbelievable.
And all I did was, like Bryan said, you know, just put me where I got to be, and I'll execute. So I was fortunate all along the way, still unfortunate to this day all along the way. You know, I talked to Lynam a lot. I just talked to Halil Knesevic twice this week in Staten Island. Yeah. You know, I've been very, very fortunate in my life And St. Joe's and the people in the community that got me there stayed with me for the last 40 years. And it's a very special.
It truly does feel like a home for people. And I almost every recruit we bring up, and we're not going to get all of them, but they all say it. You know, it's deeper than even family, right? Family is just people that spend a lot of time around each other. But when you're on Hawk Hill for however long, whether it's an hour or you're there for 4 years or 3 years or 2, you end up feeling like it's a home. Just the same way when you pull into your driveway of your mom's house, or you go home and you see your kids there, and that familiar patio and the front door and everything. It's just home. And it's awesome to hear you guys say it. For me as the head coach, it's inspiring. I'll tell you what else is inspiring. As I was going through these pictures, now, look, we have this big marketing campaign at St. Joseph's, and we're trying to create amazing logos and some uniformity. But this uniform right here in the middle with the ST and the cursive Joseph's, I'm going to fight like crazy to get that for the 21-22 season as an alternate white uniform. I think it's incredible. You know, I know we want to spell out SAINT, but we know who we are. And generally, I actually agree that we should be spelling out the word Saint and the word Joseph's. But this right here is such a connection to an incredible era at the university and for the basketball program. So I'm a brand guy. I love the gear, so I got geeked out when I saw that. That was pretty cool.
Well, Billy, make sure you don't have those shorts. That's all.
Hey, they're coming back. Aren't you guys paying? So here's the deal. They want us to give them long, but they roll them up at the waistband. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
But if I gave them short shorts, they wouldn't want it. As we transition here to this team, okay, and I love to study and learn and moments in history and the context of teams. Everybody always, it's easy to go to the results, but do you know what the process and the journey was? So a couple things that stick out to me. One, this is interesting. John Griffin is an assistant coach on this team. And his son is my assistant coach right now. And Jim Lynam and Jim Boyle are the grandfathers of Thomas Boyle, who is an assistant for us. So when you talk about home and family, it's going. But this is what I find to be interesting. In 1980, you guys go 21-9. That's a pretty good season, right? It's a really good season.
Right.
Not an NCAA tournament team, correct? But you have a good season. So I've got 2 questions for you. I want to start with this. You're heading into your senior year now, John, right? In 80-81. And what is the thought process from the summer and the fall as you've got this team? Talk me through your thought process going into your senior year.
Yeah. Well, it was a process. So when Bryan and I arrived, because we arrived together, even though I'm a year ahead of Bryan, so we arrived together. So when Lynam and Bo and Brad and then took over, we started at 19 and 11. So it was a building year. So our first year was 19. Then the year you just described was 21-9, both NIT teams. So the process was building. So when you look at the season that you just referenced, Billy, 21-9. That was also 4-0 Big Five title. So we swept the Big Five that year 4-0.
Wow. Incredible.
Right? Yeah. And each game, even more incredible, each game, this is really, really mind-boggling, was decided by 1 point. Wow. And each game was decided at the buzzer. Each game. It's unheard of. Each game. So the way I look at it was 19-11, 21-9, 2 NIT teams. The process that Lynam and Bo were building was just taking shape, right? And then, of course, we're very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate to land 2 high school All-Americans, and Tony Costner and Lonnie McFarland. So that we never got to, other than Bryan, and Boo Williams, I got to throw Boo in there. When I look at this roster here, I'm looking at this roster. Bryan and Boo Williams were 2 legitimate players that could have went anywhere in the country, all right, in my view. The rest of us were just a bunch of role players. The rest of us were just, okay, you're decent players, you're good players. You fit a spot. But they were the only 2 on this photo, Bryan and Boo, that were studs, all right? Then you bring in Tony Costner, number 50, and Lonnie McFarland. And now you got Monk in the mix. I should have threw Monk in there, Jeffrey Clark, because Monk, it would, trust me, you want Monk as a point guard, all right? You want Monk on your team, period, all right? Superstar, MVP of the Big Five, Hall of Famer, by the way, too.
Yeah.
So I would throw Monk in there. And Monk gets overlooked in this stuff because he just gets overlooked, like Bryan did in high school with basketball, all right? Yeah. But Monk could have probably went anywhere if he was just a little bit more recognized. And he played at Frankfurt High School, and it was terrific. So the process continues to go. And, of course, you need, it's like Wooden used to say, nobody wins without great players, but not everyone who has great players wins. You got to have the horses, and we started to get some horses in Lonnie and Tony, but they got to be able to be melded together, cohesive, and follow the process. So that's how we went into 80, 81, and I think you just start to catch momentum. You start to feel we're not bad. We're a pretty good team, and we can compete. So you develop a little, I don't want to say you develop a little cockiness, but you develop a little bit of, hey, we're Hawks. We know what the coaches want. Lonnie used to say this, Bryan, every day. Here's what I need you to do. Play hard, play smart, play together. If Jimmy Lynam said one more time, I need you to play hard, play smart, and play together, that's all I ask you to do, and we'll live with the result. I would jump out of my skin if he said it one more time. All right? We get it. We're going to play hard. We're Hawks. We're going to play smart. We're geniuses.
Right.
We're going to play together. We have to play together. We're going to win.
That's really, I mean, so many different things you hit on that successful teams do, roles, chemistry, listening to the coaches. That's pretty neat. And what I would ask you, Bryan, okay. And John actually referenced this. So, you're a well-established player in your own right by this time. Okay. And here comes Lonnie and Tony. All right. And you guys have been through the process. And for the fans that are listening to this right now, that are just so used to Zion Williamson, right? And so used to Karl Anthony Towns, like very few freshmen played, and very few freshmen played at a school like St. Joe's because the gap was usually really big between a senior and a freshman. So I'd love you to because, all right, you're 21-9, you're 4-0 in the Big Five, and you're like, okay, we've won all these games, but you hadn't gone to the tournament yet, okay?
Right.
And now here come these freshmen coming in. What is the mindset, one, knowing they're probably going to play, they're probably the highest recruited guys that St. Joe's had seen in quite a bit of time, and, just walk me through your thought process and unpack, how you were ready to embrace them and lead them.
Well, let me rewind it just a little bit and talk about freshmen.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, and I think John will echo this. When I was a freshman and John was there in his first year, they were the toughest practices I was ever a participant in because of the Norman Blacks, the Zane Majors, the Rob Valdez, the Adrian Hubbard. These guys were studs. And every day was like a war when I came to practice. I'm like, they were so much better than I was. I wasn't a freshman going, I should be playing because the guys ahead of me were better than me. But every day, because John wasn't going to play, Steve Carney wasn't going to play, Mike Morrow, because they all redshirted, they always played against the first team. And I was with them in that group, and Kevin Van Austin, and we're battling Luke Griffin and Zane Majors and Norman Black, who's an all-time great at the school, and Zane Majors and Adrian Hubbard. It just helped build us to be better down the road.
Yeah.
Because that team was 19-11. Coach was doing some great things, but he didn't know everybody when he walked into the building. He didn't know everyone's assets right away as players or as human beings. And he developed that as we went, and we had a successful year. So you move forward to the next season when we go 21-9. And a lot of that was because of the hard work that we put in the previous year. And I think John would echo that. We're facing guys who weren't as good as these guys we played every day in practice sometimes. So obviously we had a great season. And then during the whole season, we're recruiting Tony Costner. We're recruiting Lonnie McFarland. We're hoping everyone's trying to get them. So obviously we knew Tony Costner was going to play. The guy's 6'11", the guy's a high school All-American. Lonnie was a high school All-American, but his path was much more difficult because John Smith was in front of him, because Boo Williams was in front of him. So I told both those guys, listen, you're going to play as freshmen. There's no question. We just need to make this happen, develop together, and we will really have something dynamite. I mean, the connection, obviously, at that time, with St. Joe's, we recruited mostly local players. Yeah. So Jeffrey Clark, being from Philadelphia, Public League, those guys know him. They knew John Smith, and obviously Coach Lynam, Jim Boyle, John Griffin, they're all from the Philly area. That just, I think, solidified us in helping us to recruit those guys. And as time went on, we built a bond that was just phenomenal. Because like John said, we won more close games, I think, than anyone in the country.
Yeah.
It's funny. They used to call us the Cardiac Kids. I think, like the Daily News would write stuff about, hey, the Cardiac Hawks. Cardiac Hawks or something.
That's pretty cool. I mean, and a couple things stick out to me there. I mean, it is true. Like, the better your teams are, you're going to play against really good teams. And when two good teams play against each other, it usually comes down to like the last few possessions, particularly in your era where there were no shot clock. We'll get to that in a little bit. You know, I had the blessing to meet Lonnie McFarland for the first time at our former players game back in February. And that was a true blessing. And you could just tell by being around him that he had an aura of humility. And then Tony Costner, believe it or not, guys, played for my father for the Philadelphia Spirit back in USBL in the early 90s. So I met Tony. And I know what an amazing guy he is and an incredible Hawk. So that's actually, I mean, really, I just was taking notes on things that you were saying to share with our own team and even the recruits that we talk to. I mean, the bottom line is, like, even though basketball has changed, the things that make people and teams and organizations successful usually transcend eras, irregardless of how much things change around. The core of those things are very similar. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things. This is going to be really fun, and I'm so excited to do this. I hope you guys enjoy it too. And I'm going to just change the screen around here a little bit so I can make sure that our fans and everybody can see everything. And let me bring it up. Okay, let me go. Okay, good. All right. So, guys, here we are. And I'm going to go through 3 plays. The first play I want to talk about is you're down 4 with the ball at the end of the first half, okay? And it's the score is at this time 27-23. Now, to many fans, okay, that's not a big deal. But when you look back at how important that last possession was, because you win the game by 1, all right? You're playing a ball-controlled game anyway. So there's not – like today being down 4 – I mean, sure, we played Davidson. I think we were down 18 and ended up coming back and win the game. It just was different back then. Like that last possession, they always matter. But I just want to make sure that I'm heightening the awareness to our listeners on how critical scoring on this possession was for you guys. So not only are we going to talk about it, you guys are going to walk me through it a little bit. All right. So is the whole thing here right now at this time that we're playing for the last shot? Are we playing for the last shot? Is that fair to say?
Well,
I don't remember. Go ahead, Brian. You hit.
I think we may have been, but if the team allows us to get a layup, we're going to take it, obviously. But I couldn't tell you. It's been a while, Billy.
That's why you got me. That's why you've got me. So, all right. So that's okay. I'm happy to do this. Let's talk about going into the game, right? And I want to make sure that our fans understand this. You know, college basketball right now in a given season, you could have, 6 teams be ranked number 1. Okay, be ranked number 1. In the 80s and 90s, and particularly at this era, this DePaul team was seen like like the Georgetown team was in the mid-'80s, or like the UNLV team was at the late 80s and early 90s. Like, this was like, these guys were studs. It was a foregone conclusion that these guys were going to play in the Final Four and probably win a national championship. So going into the game, what is the game plan? Let's just talk about the structure of how you guys are going to beat them. What is the plan going into the game?
Brian, you remember this? So because there's no shot clock, what do we have to, because here's what we had to do. 100 times, control tempo. So if you control tempo, right? Because we're going to go 4 to score, right? Our offense was 4 to score, right? So if you're going to play a zone, we're going to get the lead. We're going to hold the ball, right? So we're going to spread the floor because we want to go one-on-one. So tempo control was at the core of the strategy. So why? Because if we go up tempo, we're going to lose by 50. We're going to lose by 200, all right? So we can't go up tempo. We got to control tempo, right? So that was the core strategy. So once we could control tempo and try to get them out of the zone and play us man-to-man, then we're going to go one-on-one. So that's what I recall primarily, Bryan, about the strategy.
Now, I'm in agreement, and I would say this. I think that we were very fortunate to have seen DePaul play LaSalle in the Palestra in the middle of the season. They played after us in a Big Five doubleheader. Wow, and I walked away saying we could beat that team, not knowing that we would be facing them, not knowing we would be in the tournament, hoping we would be in the tournament, of course, but not knowing that we would play DePaul. I want to say they beat LaSalle by 5 to 6 points. And after watching them and then finding out the tournament bids and what's happening, and we beat Creighton and now we're playing DePaul, I'm like, these guys don't really want to defend. We can control the tempo. And with that said, you know, everybody talks about 4 to score. John will tell you, we played LaSalle 4 to score, and it was 95-85 when they had Michael Brooks.
And we won. And we had the
we won. Yeah, we won.
Right.
We won. So, you know, when people hear 4 to score, it's not always about control and tempo. Coach Lynam always said, if they come out and they want to be aggressive, we're going to go. We're going to play. We're going to attack.
Go one-on-one, spread the floor, get in the paint, and if they collapse, dish the boom. Yep.
You know what?
So,
go ahead. Sorry.
So Billy, I'll tell you this: we felt comfortable going into the game.
Yeah.
Now, most people didn't. If it wasn't our family or the coaches, no one believed us. But we felt comfortable going into the game because we had seen them play. We felt like we could control the tempo, and we knew you would get a fair shake when you're in the NCAA tournament and it's on national TV and it's a neutral site. Because back then, tell him, John, when we were at Michigan State, this guy is on the foul line. He pump fakes. We step in. He makes it. He pump fakes. John steps in. He misses. John gets the rebound. He says something to the ref. Technical. 3 technicals on St. Joe's in the last minute of the game. Wow. This is the way it used to be. This is, you know, it's not like that anymore because all the games are on TV. And people have to, it has to be fair to some degree. But we knew being in the tournament that we're going to get a fair shake.
And I would just caveat that with this, Billy. We didn't know, I didn't know, and I know my teammates by and large didn't know. We didn't know what tournament or what league DePaul played in. We didn't any of these games. We had no clue. Oh, they play in the Big East, or they play in the A-10, or that was so irrelevant to us. Yeah. We had that didn't even come into the equation. What came into the equation was who are we playing? How do we beat them? What's the strategy?
Yeah.
How do you stop Michael Brooks from getting 50? Here's how we're going to do it. You're going to be on this side down low. The other guy's going to be on this side on the top side. You know, it's stuff like that.
There's so much that you guys said that is so relevant. I mean, one, the strategy part sticks out in my mind, John. And I agree with you guys on the 4 to score because, you know, even in my own team, we're creating space to make plays. The difference is we have a shot clock at 30 seconds. You can wait a minute and 30 seconds. But all we're both trying to do really is spread the floor, right? Like it's like if we were to play the #1 team in the country, I couldn't do it the way Coach Lynam did. The rules won't allow us to do it that way. They just won't do it. So, but the best way to beat those teams is to create space, which is we try to recruit to that because we think about how are we going to win a national championship, and it's not too dissimilar to what you guys are saying. Have a bunch of guys that can go one-on-one, a bunch of guys that can pass, and a bunch of ways to space the floor to make these teams come out. That's the first thing. The second thing that is interesting, Bryan, is in today's day and age, kids that would go to a school at the level of St. Joe's are so used to playing against the guys that go to the #1 teams because the implosion of AAU. So I mean, you guys were both NBA players, and you had two studs on your team, and Tony and Jeff, and obviously Lonnie and Boo. But I would bet that the psychological edge that you got from watching DePaul play in an arena that you guys had played in the Palestra against a Big Five opponent in a game that they could have lost had to have given you more confidence than probably you realized even at that time. But that's important, as opposed to, man, like, think about the intimidation of a team that had never played guys like this. So that's really interesting. Yeah. Guys, watch this shot, okay? So I've watched this probably 10 times just this morning. This is a reverse 360 twisting layup to cut the lead to 2.
Yeah.
Now,
and that ended the half right there.
That's it. But it's not a layup. It's not a reverse layup. It's he jumped up and spun around and shielded the guy to score. I mean, an incredible shot. Incredible.
And Lonnie will tell you it was a good shot.
Yeah.
It was a good shot. There wasn't a shot Lonnie didn't like. Believe me.
So you guys are running off the court. It just went from 27-23 to 27-25 against the number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Bryan, I'm going to start with you. As you're running off the court, forget about the locker room for a second. I'm going to get to John on the locker room. Tell me, like, what's in your heart? What are you feeling as you guys are walking off that court down 2?
I think we're feeling good. I'm feeling good. We've been in so many close games before that in my head, everything is going according to plan. We knew we weren't beating DePaul by 25 points. We knew it was going to be another close game. And for us, the fact that we had been in so many close games, I think, was an advantage. If you recall, and I think I'm pretty right about this, DePaul blew out most of the people that they played during the season. I mean, I think they were number 1 all year, and they were beating people by over 20 just about every game.
Wow. John, when you get into the locker room, what do you remember? Like, what are the coaches saying? What are you guys? You're sitting in chairs like we are right now, and you've already won a game. And Bryan, you make a good point. Like, you were a really good team. Okay, so we know that. John, you've referenced 4-0 in a Big Five, buzzer beater, 1-point win. So you're sitting around, you're in a locker room. But this is a different stage now. You're on national television. You're against the team that's picked to win the national championship. You're down 2 points. What is the talk in the locker room? What are the coaches saying to you? What do you remember about that setting?
I wish I could remember, but my guess was Lynam and Bo and Brad. They're all saying, stick with the plan.
Right.
It's working. Tempo control is working. You're not intimidated by this group. And Bryan's right. They were not only the 1 seed in the tournament, they were ranked 1 in the country pretty much the entire year. And they went into the tournament ranked 27-1. So DePaul went into the tournament 27-1. So I think in the locker room, we were like, okay, again, we're not intimidated by the group. We're down a deuce, stick to the plan, stick with the process, come on out and continue to execute. And, hopefully we have a shot here, hopefully have a shot at the end to win it.
That's great. That's great. Okay. So we talked about this off air before we started the call, but and let me go back to this. Before we get there, I want to talk about Coach Lynam, okay, for a second, if you guys don't mind. So you guys have referenced so many things. You referenced Sunny Hill League. I played in that. You referenced Tony Coster. My dad coached him. I started my college coaching career at Philadelphia Textile for Herb McGee. He was the first guy that gave me a chance. It then turned into Philadelphia University. For people listening, it's now Jefferson. So I met Coach Lynam through Coach McGee, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 years with the Sixers, I've had probably close to 100 conversations with Coach Lynam before a game because he does the studio work. First off, he's so charismatic. He's so engaging. I love listening to him. He is a basketball savant, but he's inspiring and he's motivating and he's simple and he keeps it about the fundamentals. I just love him. Like, from the first time I ever met him 20 years ago till spending time with him in the NBA, I just so enjoy being around him and talking about the game of basketball. But John, tell me about, your relationship with Coach Lynam as a player. What do you remember about, being a young person and his ability to inspire and motivate you during that period of your life?
Wow. how much time do we have?
We probably don't have a ton, but I'd love to hear the bullet points though.
Well, so I'll give you the truncated version. So I met Coach. It would have been 77, right? Yeah, I would have met him in 77. You know, the way he taught and the way he communicated was he treated you like a man. I never felt like even though I was a student and I was a player, when I spoke to him and he spoke to me and I was receiving his knowledge, I really felt empowered.
Yeah.
I felt like he was giving me data and he was giving me analytics that I know was going to help me, not only on the court, but in life, and just going to the store about how to talk to people, and how to communicate with people. Inspiring. His whole thing about attention to detail, right? Because it is the details, and the little things are the big things. He would have these little phrases, and if you just stuck with them and you just stay with it, and don't lose sight of what he's trying to incorporate in your nugget in your brain, you could utilize this stuff beyond the court. So I think about the last 40 years, what my life would have been, how different it could have been had I not met him so many years ago. And he's a dear friend.
That's inspiring.
I don't know what my life would be like had he not been in it for the last 4 decades plus.
John, that is beyond inspiring as a guy that sits in the same seat and walks the same sidelines. And I see that same charismatic energy that he has, and I can understand it. Bryan, I mean, I know that, and you have played for a lot of great coaches, over your career. And now here you are as a man, and I know you still have a relationship with Coach Lynam. So if you wouldn't mind just talking to us about, forget the college experience for Coach Lynam, now, like, as you have grown into a father and a husband and a professional, the relationship that you've had with Coach, for the last 20, 30 years of your life.
Well, I don't think you can forget the college portion, because John hit it on the head. When you're talking to Coach, he's so charismatic, but he was the first coach I think I ever dealt with who really talked about family, his family, how you should try to treat family, your spouse. And to me, the number one thing is he always saw the best in people. Mm-hmm. So like John, he's like, John, you're not shooting 20-footers, but you can shoot 15 and in. That's Coach. Where other people would say, John Smith, you just can't shoot. Bryan Warrick, you just can't dribble or whatever. Coach would always see the positive in you, and he would reinforce that, and he would use that when he was coaching and incorporate it into the game plan. And I think that over the years, and I know players, I've seen players, but on our team, like Coach made this statement, if I say it's snowing outside, you don't have to run to the window. You just believe it's snowing. And that's how we were with him. Yeah. Whatever he said, we believed it would work because it worked just about. Am I right, John? It worked all the time, whatever we had planned. Now, that doesn't mean we went undefeated, obviously. Yeah. That doesn't mean other teams weren't better than us, but he always put us in a position to win. And I think that's the number one thing with him. And that also carries over to life. He's always talking about or always expressed the joy he had for his own family. And it made me, I was raised by a single mother, basically. So it was something I looked up to. I inspired to have a family and take care of my kids and be there and support them like he did. So I'll never, ever be able to thank him enough for that.
That's powerful. I can tell you.
Hey, Billy, I'll give you just a real fast caveat, just for 30 seconds. So as the game is unfolding and we win the game, obviously, my father was dying of cancer at the time. So my father would sit at the games in a wheelchair with a Saint, back in the days, he'd have a St. Joe hat on, and they used to give out, remember, Brian, cowbells?
Yeah.
So some of the play would have cowbell, and he would sit there. So the game's over. We just get done doing the press thing. So Brian and I and Coach were on the press thing and doing the press thing. And before I even got to the press thing, they line him. Did you call your father? Now, my father watched the game, obviously, in South Philly. But when I called home, he wouldn't get on the phone.
Right.
And my mother said, I said, well, what do you mean? Did he watch the game? Of course he watched the game. The whole neighborhood watched the game. I said, well, just put him on the phone. He said, he won't get on the phone. I said, why not? He said, because he's crying. My father never cried a day in his life, ever.
Wow.
Ever. I said, what? Now, he died 3 weeks after the DePaul game, but he got to watch the game. Follow me?
Right.
He got to see the game. He got to see the win, and he got to see all the neighbors put their things in their South Philly windows. Congratulations, St. Joe's and John Smith, that kind of thing. First thing Lynam says after the game, you go call your father right now. That's the kind of stuff.
I can tell you this, guys, as a coach, you just thanked him more than you even know. And I know he probably already knows it. And it's funny as you're sharing me these stories and all the details, and you're talking about fundamentals and caring and visionary. Like, I remember Coach Lynam coming to me. We had to do 20 games in the Ben Simmons' rookie year. And he was complimentary about, like, hey, I like some of these things you're doing to help Ben. And then he gave me like 2 nuggets right away. And I said, hey, Coach, hold on. I just brought Ben over, you know, because I'm working out Ben. I was Ben's development coach. And then here comes Coach Lynam. And, you know, it's hard for young players right now to give credit to anybody because they're just so entitled and pumped up. He was looking Coach Lynam in the eye, and Ben was as locked in as I ever saw him. So I can understand how he must have been to you guys back in the day. All right, so now here we go. Jump ball. Now, the first thing I got to add, like, you're down 3. So here we are. We're basically towards the end of the game. There's no more jump balls in college basketball, but I do want our fan base to know, like, back then, there were jump balls. I mean, this is a big deal. So, all right, John is jumping. The film's a little grainy, but John is jumping. So, Bryan, I'm going to start with you. Do you believe in your heart at this moment that your teammate is going to win this jump ball? All right. And I'm actually because watch, guys. I want you to see this. Okay. In the bottom corner to your left, right here, Jeff Clark is already getting back on defense, and this guy
exactly.
He's already going. Okay. Tony's got his forearm up. Tony's hoping that this guy's trying to tap it back. Lonnie's trying to steal it. But, Bryan, you don't move, which is amazing to me. If you would have stepped in or stepped back, you do not win this. You do not get the ball. One step, one way. So I have to ask you, as your brother here is getting ready to go up for the jump, and be real, what were you thinking, please?
Hey, listen, I know John, and he knows the art of when you're going up, hit the other guy's arm and keep going for the ball. I know him. And we talk about, you know, when you're laying your body on people boxing out. I had faith that John would get it. And if he didn't, I was hoping to get it and make sure DePaul didn't get it. We needed the ball. That's all I could say. We needed the ball. But I knew the trick. I knew the trick.
And what John, what he's telling you, Billy, is the trick was, because we talked about it prior to, this is Teddy Grubbs. So I'm jumping against Teddy Grubbs, 6'8". Teddy Grubbs puts his elbows on the rim.
Right.
Now, am I going to win the jump? Oh, yes, I'm going to win the jump, only if I steal it. So I know I'm going to go up with the ball. Now, you can't do that today, obviously, as you talk about the rules changing. I'm going to steal the tap. And I told Bryan prior to this, Bryan, I'm going to steal the tap, all right? And that's what we did. He stole the tap, and he steps up and boom, drains it.
So in your mind, because this is great, because, I mean, 6 years in the NBA, there were jump balls all the time, and Brett Brown spent a ton of time talking about the nuances because games can come down to this stuff. So in your mind, it's not that you're just stealing it. You're stealing it, and you're stealing it backwards. Like, you're not trying to tip it. Okay, got it.
No, that's right. So watch the whole thing. That's right. That's correct.
So Bryan Warrick, as I mentioned off air, is the 9th all-time leader in steals in St. Joseph's basketball history. Okay, so I want our fan base to understand this, because this is incredible. When Bryan played, there were limited possessions. So to still be 9th with all the amazing guards that St. Joe's has had in the last 20 years, 30 years, 40 years is incredible. So, but this is it. Like, you steal this. Like, that is what made you steal. So, John, you steal the tap, and Bryan goes like he's picking off a skip pass or is in the middle of a 2-2-1 press and steals it. And then obviously the rest is history on this play. you know, he steps in and there's that high arcing shot. That guy had no chance of blocking that. Zero. That's why I asked you that. Did it ever get blocked? You're like, I hope not. Look where that ball is. Look where that ball is.
You know, now I'm watching this. Brian, Billy was right. Monk was running back on D. Monk didn't think I was going to win this tap.
Yeah, you're going to call him after this.
Go around.
He'll be on my next one. He'll be on the next one. Brian, do you feel when you get it, like, are you committed to the shot? Did it look more open before you took it? Did you think about going by him? If you can walk us through, you know, right now you have it. Now what?
No. There wasn't much time, if I'm correct. When this happens. I'm thinking we need to score.
Right.
Is what's going through my head.
Yeah.
As soon as I got the ball, I'm thinking we need to score.
Yeah.
Well, you do. And look where he hits you. Like, I mean, if your release was just down here, it's a block shot, right? Or you've got to alter. So it's just awesome. By the grace of God, this is why the Hawk will never die. Okay. So now if I've set this up, you know, here we go. So now I want our fans to understand, especially, okay, now this is also pretty cool. We've got 2 Philly fans in Dayton, Ohio, one in a Tug McGraw jersey and one in a Wilbert Montgomery jersey. If you tried to buy these right now, they probably cost about $500.
Well, the Phillies jersey is Owen Patterson.
Is that right?
Yeah, so Owen's my class. Yeah, that's Owen. He's Owen's at every game.
Owen's at all our games. I bet you no one will be happier listening to this than Owen Patterson right now.
That's Owen Patterson. It comes at 45 years every game. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I love it. Wilbert Montgomery and now Tug McGraw being represented by Owen. It can't get any better than this. Thank you for just sharing that with me. I would love to know who he's turned up, but he's excited. He's all fired up.
I'm not sure if that's Danny Griffin. I can't see the kid with the Montgomery hat, but could be. Right. It might have been Danny Griffin.
Okay, so here we go. We're now going to the line. DePaul's on the line for a 1-and-1, and they're up by 1. So you're down 1. Okay. Now here's what I want to make sure that, and I'm just going to set the table, and then you guys are going to take it from here. All right. Now, this is the important stuff. They're up 1. Okay. This guy, Skip Dillard, shoots 85% from the free throw line, okay? It's a 1-and-1. So nowadays you're shooting in a double bonus once you get to 10 fouls, and usually at the end of the game, very rarely is a team in 1-and-1. They're usually shooting 2. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's no three-point line. So if he makes both, you need 2 possessions. But the problem with that is the clock doesn't stop in the final minute. So if he made both and you raced up, the best you can get was a 2. And based on the time of the game, they wouldn't even have needed to inbound it had you guys scored. And you could have called timeout if you had 1 left. That's fine. So here we are on the line. And Skip Dillard is about to miss this free throw. So is Coach Lynam saying to you guys, like, hey, we're going? Like, what is this? I mean, John, you've been the one that's talked about strategy a lot. So I'm going to look for you for strategy here. And then, Brian, I'm going to talk to you about mindset. What's the strategy right now, John? What make or miss? What's our strategy?
So the strategy is to run the fast break offense off a missed free throw, which we practice every day of the week at nauseum.
Right.
So like you practice today, you practice last 10 seconds, whatever you practice, Billy, last 30 seconds, whatever this, we did the same thing. Right. So we're going to run our fast break offense off of a missed free throw. And that's what we did. So, you know, Skip's going to shoot a 1-and-1. Skip, by the way, his nickname for everybody that might not remember this. So his nickname was Money.
Right.
So Skip's nickname was Money because he was clutch. All right. So clutch. So Skip Money Dillard is going to do a 1-and-1, and we're going to, if he misses, we're not calling a timeout. We're not going to give him a chance to set. We're going to do what we've done every single day in practice. And I'm going to run the 4 slot. Lonnie's going to run the 3 slot. You know, Tony's going to run the 5. You know, we're going to run our slots. You know, we're going to follow the strategy.
And do you remember thinking, like, was it this, and I'm just asking now, I'm just picking your brain as a basketball guy. If it was a made basket, would it have been the same thing? Like, just get it in quickly and run your fast break spots? So
if he would have made both, put us down.
Well, let's say he would have
3, right?
Yeah, if you're down
3. No. My guess, no. So my guess is we're going to. I don't know because we don't know. But my guess is we would have called timeout. And
Correct.
Try to
I
set
think so,
something up
too.
at that point.
But on a missed basket, you're going. You're taking off.
Well, that was the
Always.
strategy.
Yeah,
Always.
and I'll tell you
Always.
what,
Yeah, not giving them a chance.
Brett Brown, we would talk about this situation all the time. And it's funny because as a coach, you're criticized if you don't call timeout, even on the miss, right? But the reality is there's never more of a jailbreak situation that the offense has an advantage on than a missed free throw, especially when the missed free throw is by a guy that is a great free throw shooter, because no one's thinking DePaul's not thinking he's going to miss this because he's money, but he wasn't. Okay.
Right.
So let's
That's
go
right.
through it. All right. So first off, John, you're going to get credit in about 10 seconds for the best shot, but the box out was amazing. Let's just start there. You had a great box out. The more I watch this, I can see that you were a great football player because your hands are incredible. They're incredible. All right. And what's interesting is, you make the jump ball, the shot off the jump ball, and I hope our fans are like, you were the leading scorer on this team. As great as this team was, every team has a leading scorer. You were the leading scorer. So you step up, you make a huge shot. We're basically in the next possession. Now you have the ball. Okay. Tell me your mindset right now.
Well, mindset is we need to get it up the court and score. Basically.
Are you thinking you have to take the shot?
No, to be honest, because this is so ironic. I was injured 2 weeks before the end of the season. Yeah. And I have to say this now. Everyone talks about the DePaul game all the time. But when I hear the DePaul game, I think about Billy Mitchell, Mark Dearborn, and Tony DeCaro. Because when I was injured, I think we won the next game. We lost to Villanova, and we lost a close one to American because I just looked at the scrapbook. Then we play at home against Temple, which I tell people to this day is the biggest game of my life, and I didn't play. Oh. If we lose this game to Temple, who had Neil Robinson, Mark Davis, Alton McCullough, 6'9", Ron Wister, 7 foot, Terrence Stansberry, Keith Parham. If we lose this game, we're not even in the NCAA tournament. We lose in the second round of the ECC tournament. So, everyone always talks about DePaul, but I always go back to Billy Mitchell played great to help us get here. Tony DeCaro played great to help us get here. Mark Dearborn played great, and then he got injured in the Temple game with a fractured ankle. I always think back to those guys. So, I'm a big guy who believes in team, flat out. And that's how we arrived here. And even back to when I made a jumper against Villanova, John Smith sent the best screen of his life my sophomore year, his junior year. I'm wide open. I knock it down, but I don't do that by myself. I do that because of the team. So in this situation, we love to come out of a scramble situation so the defense doesn't have an opportunity to set up. And as we're coming up the court, I'm just trying to bring it up. But I know because I'm playing with a knee brace, I have an injured knee, I know I can't make it all the way to the basket. Okay. That's not really on my mind. But I'm looking to develop something for somebody to help us to get a good shot. That's all.
That's great. And, going back to John's point, this is Lange right here where I have my cursor. He's
running the lane.
He's running his lane because what's interesting is that Lange, think about this. You basically have within 20 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys, right?
Right.
Within 20 feet. This is why Coach Lynam was, I think, it's risky, but it's the right risk. It's a smart risk. It's syndicate. I think he did the right thing. And I believe that as you watch this play unfold, what's interesting is I think Lange could have actually gotten behind the defense and gotten a layup, but he was so well drilled and so well coached that he went to his spot.
On his slot. He did. So, now, before you continue, you want to be clear here. Everybody has to understand this point, flat out. This is the play of the game. No doubt. Watch what he does between the legs, crossing it over, and the whole time
I'm about to tell. I'm about to do it.
Right up the floor.
No, I'm about to do it. So I'm about to go right there right now. And Bryan, thank you for talking about your teammates because, our program's attitude is about iron sharpening iron. We need everybody. Everybody has a unique skill set, and you don't know when guys are going to be called on, and I really value that. So here we go. So here's what's interesting is that I tell our players all the time, is that if you stab for the ball in the backcourt, when the buzzer sounds, don't even look. You're the guy that's coming out of the game. Like, don't even look. The biggest cardinal sin and the most selfish thing you can do to your teammates in transition defense. DePaul does it not only once, twice. And because we've got this gifted ball handler, so here we go first. So you've already changed direction once. Here's your second one through the legs. This guy tries to steal it. 2 stabs in the backcourt. So now, fans, now we're already 5-on-3. We're 5-on-3. So I am going to show this clip to our players because they think I'm crazy when I do it because they all remember the steal for the dunk, but they don't remember the 50 other times where we just put the other team at an advantage. Great job. Brian, was that station 7 at 5-star right there that you just did?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because Coach Lynam had come up with a drill like a month before the end of the season where we had to dribble around a coach, dribble around by another coach, and then advance the ball up the wing. And he didn't even have a name for it. Like, we just did it. And I'm like, why are we doing this? And lo and behold, it comes to fruition right here.
All right, well, I'm telling you, next year when you come to practice, I'm calling that the Warrick drill. That's going in. My grade school coach, Jim Lynam, God rest his soul, used to call it Z dribbling, and I get it. We used to do this all the time. Okay, so now here we go. And to John's point, everybody is really well positioned and running their lane. So great kick ahead pass. And this is now again, look at this. 2 guys.
2 more.
Ball, no one declaring ball. So it's like all these things have to fall in place. So it gives you an open pass. And, as Lonnie gets the ball, I'm looking at this. Guys, I've had to have watched this 20, 30 times. It's like he could have had a layup. But now, John, you've made it. This is the spot. Okay. Now, John, I have played a lot of basketball in my life. I would say I've played so much pickup ball. It's crazy. I cannot tell you how many times that I have raised up to shoot this ball and tried to throw it to someone underneath the basket, and instinctively the person turns and looks for the rebound, okay? And the ball goes off his head and I look bad. I got to know this because, God, the game is over. Like, you have to make the play to win the game. What? And it's probably the grace of God and the spirit of Hawk will never die. You keep your eye on the ball, like the shooter. Like, you never
absolutely
up to see whether or not he was shooting. Now, the good thing is you had 4 other guys here, so maybe it would have bounced off your head and into somebody else's hands. Or if he shot it, you got the rebound. But how do you keep your eyes on the ball in this setting right here and not look – I should say eyes on Lonnie and not start to look at the rim for the rebound?
Just got to finish the play. Got to follow it through, and you got to, it's crunch time. He's going to shoot it, and he's going to make it, or he's going to pass it, or he's going to pass it to me. One of the things you got to remember about Lonnie, yes, he's a freshman, and he did play like a freshman. He really didn't. But Lonnie people say he was a shooter. He was a scorer. Yes, he was a shooter. Yes, Lonnie was a scorer, but Lonnie was smart. Lonnie had court awareness. He had court vision. Let me tell you something. For 40 years, people say, and how do I do it? Because I'm watching Lonnie. I want the play to finish. I want the process to complete. For 40 years, I've been told, made that shot to beat DePaul. Lonnie McFarland takes that shot. He makes that shot. Trust me. Right. Lonnie could shoot, all right?
Yeah.
Lonnie, we're talking about Lonnie for 40 years. This team and all the teammates that Brian mentioned and all the history and the legacy, but Lonnie McFarland he was a freshman playing with men, and he was a man amongst all of us. And the fact that he was so cognizant of, I'm wide open, to give it up and to be unselfish, right? I mean, he's got a 14-footer there, maybe 15-footer, which he would drill 9 out of 10 of them. To give it up like that, that's a player. That's a teammate. That's somebody who wants to win.
That is awesome. So I'll play this out. The dump off, the basket, and March Madness is created. This is where, because this day, all of these upsets, there's Clarkie picking them up. Just amazing story. It's just an incredible story, and it adds to just what has been an amazing story for the history of St. Joe's basketball. We talk about it all the time with our guys. You know, every single season is a chapter in a never-ending book, a never-ending story. And, you know, some are going to gain more attention than others. And I just want to say, for me, just preparing for this time with you guys has been awesome. It's really inspired me. It's made me want to do more and bring these moments to our fans. So I just want to thank you guys for not just your time today, but really the inspiration, and now giving us even more because you told the story behind the story of this season, of your journeys, and of this game. I think is incredible.